Hey, Archie, I'm getting a new car. I can't decide whether to pay cash or to finance it.
Well, Rob, let me ask you this. Do you want to buy it once or buy it twice? I'm Archie Hoxton.
And I'm Rob Hoxton.
And this is Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. Welcome back to the Last Paycheck Podcast. We're your hosts, Archie Hoxton and Rob Hoxton. And today we're talking about buying cars and whether you should pay cash or finance. And we've both been through the car buying experience fairly recently, and so it's kind of fresh in our minds, and we realize, this is a huge financial decision that, it's worth considering and weighing your options and really understanding the trade-offs between the two. And then maybe if there's an ideal option, what is that for you? So,
Archie, I wish I had been able to watch this episode of Last Paycheck before I bought mine, because you're gonna offer some great advice that probably would have saved me some money, stuff that I didn't know. So that's pretty good.
It may. Yeah. So. I mean, and I think for a lot of people, the default is, well, you just finance it. And they go in thinking, I want to figure out what I can afford in my month-to-month cash flow as far as payments are concerned. But there are better ways to go about it. There really are.
Yeah, we got to stop, as consumers, we've got to stop thinking in terms of payments.
Yeah, because ultimately you may be paying a whole lot more than you need to in the grand scheme. And it's a powerful sales tactic that's used. So we'll start maybe we weigh the pros and cons of each. So let's start with cash, right? If you're, a fan of Dave Ramsey or maybe some other personal finance gurus, they'll often tell you cash is king. And most of the time...
And oftentimes cash is the only way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cash, I would say...
It might mean you have to ride a bicycle for longer, but...
Yeah. Well, and there are times where it's a no-brainer. And then there are times where it's not super clear, because one of the drawbacks of paying cash, is that you have to have the cash.
Yeah,
I mean, and depending on where you are in life, this might not be an option, and you need a car.
And you need a car to get to work, to get the cash, right? So.
Right. So it's not to say that it's the only way to do it that makes good financial sense. It depends.
So if you're going to borrow money, let's do it in a way that's makes the most sense.
Right.
Let's not get too much car, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And think about it like that. Buying in cash has benefits. The first major benefit is that you're not paying interest on the loan, right? So what you're paying for the car, you're paying for your taxes, the actual cost of the car itself, any add-ons or whatever else you buy at the dealer. You're paying for insurance, and that's your all-out cost. If you're financing, you're paying interest, which can actually add up and be a serious expense depending on...
Yeah, especially now, interest rates being much higher than they were a few years ago. It wasn't but maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where you were still seeing these very low interest rates on car loans, even 0% interest rates on loans.
Right. Yeah. Often, especially if you're financing at the dealer through the manufacturer's finance arm, they were doing some pretty nice deals, especially around like COVID, around that time. You'd see ads on TV, 0 down, 0% financing. And that's where it's hard to argue with that, because you're not paying cash, but you're not paying any interest, so you're spreading it out over the life of the loan.
Yeah, I mean, if you borrow money on a new vehicle and you don't pay attention to the numbers, you could actually end up buying that car twice, and that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. But if you buy too much car and the interest rate is really high, and they, in order to get you in the car with a payment that you can afford, if they have such a long amortization schedule, you may actually come close to buying the car twice.
Yeah, the interest adds up a lot over
Not
time.
smart.
And it's a sales tactic. It's a way to get you into a nicer car.
Yeah.
And so you should be warned that that's not really the best way to do it. And that's probably more the car than you can truly afford. Another benefit of buying cash is that you own it outright and you have more flexibility with your insurance. Now, it probably makes good sense to have comprehensive coverage if you're buying a car in cash so that, if something happens to the car and you need to either have a rental or you need to replace the car or you need to replace a part of the car, having that comprehensive coverage makes sense. But if you finance it, that's usually required.
And you can't have a high deductible policy.
Right.
Like I normally carry a very high deductible on cars, and because I save for a car, I pay cash, I buy less car than I could probably otherwise get if I borrowed the money, and then I save more money by having a higher deductible on the policy. Now I've got a pretty good driving record.
Yeah.
And don't typically have car accidents. Especially now that you and your sister are out of the house, we have a much better than when you all were teenagers. We had to worry about that much more than now. But
yeah,
I'd be interested, Archie. You just bought a new vehicle, and so you went through that buying process. And I know that you got some pretty good tactics to optimize the buying experience. But maybe can you talk a little bit about that experience and the different ways that dealers can structure a deal in their favor, and maybe not so much in the favor of the buyer?
Yeah. So, if you think about this in terms of what you want and what the dealer wants, because you should have a good sense of that when you go to a negotiation. What do they want? What do you want? Can you find something that everyone's winning in some way? And what the dealer usually wants is they want to get you in a car today. Ideally they want you to buy an expensive car if they can make you feel like you can afford it. They want you to finance it because they often get incentives to connect either with the manufacturer's financing arm or with one of the banks that they partner with. Usually if you finance a car, they come back with a bunch of different rates from different banks. That benefits them. And then the add-ons, the warranties, the treatments, the additional products that they'll install for you, that kind of thing. Those are the things that they want to get done with you. Now, you just want to get a good deal on a car, and you want to have fun with the buying experience, and you want the car that you want.
And you get all worked up, the smell of the car and all of the cool features, and then you're sitting in the car, and the rear view mirror, you can see yourself sitting in the car, and I look great in this car, and it is the car business. They have really figured out what makes us tick as human beings.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's so easy to get wrapped up into it, and you're like, man, I would really like to have this car.
Yeah.
Or this truck or whatever. And then there's the, how am I going to afford it? And they've got that figured out too.
Right.
Because all it is how can we get this to cash flow for this guy?
Right.
Right.
Right. And if you're at the negotiation table, it's easy to go through without really seeing everything that's going into what you're paying other than the payments, the monthly payments for the loan. So if you're thinking, I want to get in this car today, they want you in this car today, they want to make the sale, and you're like, $500 a month, I can make that work. But then it's 96 months, which is 8 years. And it's a high interest rate, 5-6% or whatever it is. And that loan is incredibly just inefficient. It's a bad way to buy, but it's a good way to get you in the car today. So that's where the negotiation kind of works against you. You're not really winning there because you're paying so much more in interest.
Well, and then any of the add-ons that they recommend, like the warranty or the lining spray that they put in the bed of a truck or something, those are all of those things. If that cost is spread out over 96 months, Yeah, it's an extra 10 or 15 bucks a month. Why not? Let's do it. The tonneau cover, the 20-inch wheels, whatever it is.
Right.
It's so easy to add that on if you're paying it over a long period of time. But again, you may be buying that car twice.
Yeah. And two, I mean, all that really is adding up to it adds to your out the door price for the vehicle, and the amount financed. And it's over 8 years, there's almost no way you don't end up upside down in that vehicle unless you've got a really significant down payment. 8 years is a long time to make a monthly payment that maybe it's hard to make work every single month if it's a little tight. That's a long time to have that.
If your objective is to be financially independent and free from interference from third parties, debt is not your friend.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it even talks about it in the Bible. Who's the master? If you have this kind of debt, you can't stop working.
Right.
You can't decide, I want to go take 3 months and hike part of the Appalachian Trail. No can do, because you are owned by the finance company.
Right. And that's the thing. They have a claim to the next $500 a month out of the next 8 years. They own a part of your income. And if you think about it like that, you're forfeiting part of your income for 8 years. That's another way to think about it. So if you're going to finance, it really is important to focus on what you're actually paying for the vehicle and be less concerned about the payments, right? And figure out, buy something that you can afford, that you don't have to go 96 months out to make the payments. Maybe 48 months, 36 months, or 60 months. If you can be in that range and you can still afford it, then that's probably a better buy for a vehicle. And it's a better gauge for deciding whether or not you can actually afford that vehicle.
So Archie, let's say you have saved and you have enough money to go buy the vehicle you want. And so with a great deal of pride, as you should have, you go to the dealership, and it can be you're buying a lightly used car or a new car. I tend to favor lightly used cars because somebody else already took the hit. But you go to the dealership and you're going to buy the car. You've got enough money saved up, and you, with great pride and gusto, say, nope, I'm paying cash. Is there a better way?
Well, there may be. So, and it depends. All of this depends. Sometimes certain vehicles, you can negotiate a little bit more on some. It's harder depending on inventory. But let's say, for example, you go in and you say, I'm going to pay cash, and you're hard and fast on paying cash. Well, the dealer now realizes that, okay, that's one less added benefit that I can get from this deal.
You being the dealer.
Me being the dealer.
Right.
So, because remember, what you want is a good deal on a car. What the dealer wants is to sell you a car today, ideally. They want you to finance it because they can make a little extra money doing that. They want you to add things on like warranties and additional products, treatments, and that kind of thing. And so what you've done is you've just forfeited one of your bargaining chips right at the beginning of the negotiation. Where if you go in with an open mind and being open to financing and then paying off later, that might be you might be able to bring that as a way to save a few $100, $1,000 on the actual out the door price of the vehicle.
Let me see if I've got this right. You're planning to buy a car cash. You go to the dealership. You finance the car. You leave the dealership with a car and a loan. And then a month or so later, you write a check to pay off the loan.
Yep.
And you got a better deal because you did it that way.
Right.
Okay.
That's the idea.
That's the advice I wish I'd had when I bought my last car.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's always going to work, but it is a chip that you have. You don't have a whole lot of chips to bring to the table because ultimately they're there to make money. And so they're not going to lose money on the vehicle just because you're special or something, right? It's really about finding a win-win where you're both gaining something in that transaction. And so that's one way to do it. But you got to make sure there's no prepayment penalty, because some loans still have prepayment penalties.
Oh, good point.
Most of them don't.
And don't forget that the salesperson is really nice and they feel like you're a long lost buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see them again, probably. And they are not your long lost buddy.
Yeah.
They are trying to get money out of your pocket. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're negotiating.
Yeah. Be okay with walking away. Use the bargaining chips that you have available, and be a well-informed consumer. Don't go in thinking, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the car that I want in terms of the right payment. Think, I'm going to do whatever I need to do, including walking away, to get a really, really good out-the-door price, the sale price, taxes, get the best price you can get, and then weigh the cash and financing option.
One more great tip is have a buddy, a friend, your spouse, whoever, waiting for the phone call. So before you sign the paper, you call them and they can try to walk you back.
Yeah.
So that, if you can just wait to buy it until tomorrow so that it's not as emotional.
Sleep on it.
And have somebody that's going to help you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that really covers everything that we had for today. So if you enjoyed the episode, remember to like and subscribe, leave us a comment, share with your family and friends, and we'll hope to see you next time. You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.